As a new YouTuber, I get so excited to receive comments from my subscribers. One of you requested I recap one of the hottest new mangas, Oshi No Ko, and I love it. Thank you so much to all of you who like and subscribe to new manga channels like mine, and let's begin our complete Oshi No Ko total recap. Chapter 1. The glimmer of stardom in the bustling city, where dreams flickered like neon lights. A question echoed through the mind of many. What if I were a celebrity's kid? The allure of fame and the seemingly effortless life that accompanied it was a tantalizing thought. Yet for most, it remained just that, a thought, a fantasy whispered into the night. But for Hoshino, this was not a fantasy. I was an idol, a radiant star whose every move captured the hearts of her fans. With her captivating smile and mesmerizing performances, she embodied the very essence of stardom. Yet, beneath the glittering surface, I held a secret, one that would soon change everything. Across town, in a small and humble clinic, a young doctor named Guru Mimiya led a quiet life, far removed from the world of idols and their glimmering stages. Guru's life had taken a turn years ago when he lost someone dear to him, an idol whose light had burned too brightly, too fast. In the wake of her passing, Guru had dedicated himself to his work, finding solace in the routine of his clinic and the care of his patients. However, the monotony of Guru's days was shattered one fateful afternoon when a mysterious patient arrived. Dressed in a heavy coat with a hood that obscured her face, the young woman hesitated in the doorway, her movements careful and deliberate. Guru, ever the professional, welcomed her with a warm smile, gesturing for her to sit. As she lowered her hood, Guru's heart skipped a beat. Before him sat Hoshino, the idol whose presence could command thousands. Her usually vibrant eyes now carried a hint of worry, and her smile, though still beautiful, was tinged with uncertainty. "I'm pregnant," I confessed softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Guru, momentarily stunned, quickly composed himself. This was no ordinary situation, and I was no ordinary patient. She was an idol, one whose entire career was built on an image of purity and unattainable perfection. A child would complicate everything: her career, her life, her future. "Are you sure?" Guru asked gently, his professional instincts kicking in. I nodded, her hands resting protectively on her abdomen. "I want to keep the baby, but I can't let anyone know. Not my agency, not the fans, no one." Guru's mind raced. The medical implications alone were complex, but the social repercussions for I were even more daunting. Yet, as he looked into her eyes, he saw a determination that couldn't be ignored. "I'll help you," he finally said. "But you'll need to be careful, very careful." Thus began a secret journey, one that would bond I and Guru in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Guru arranged for I's prenatal care in the strictest confidence, setting up appointments late at night and disguising her identity in medical records. As the weeks passed, Guru found himself drawn deeper into I's world, a world of secrets, lies, and the constant pressure of living up to an impossible image. I, for her part, continued to perform, her public persona as flawless as ever. But in the quiet moments away from the spotlight, she would retreat to the clinic, seeking solace in the knowledge that at least one person knew the truth and stood by her. One evening, after another exhausting performance, I arrived at the clinic. As Guru conducted a routine checkup, he noticed the toll that the double life was taking on her. She was pale, her energy depleted, yet she refused to slow down. "You need to rest more," Guru advised, his concern evident. "Your body is under a lot of stress, and it's not just about you anymore." I nodded, but Guru could see the conflict in her eyes. She was trapped between her responsibilities as an idol and her desire to protect the life growing inside her. For Ai, there was no easy choice, only sacrifice. As the weeks turned into months, Ai's condition became harder to conceal. Despite their best efforts, rumors began to swirl. The pressure from her agency grew, and the relentless pace of her performances left her exhausted. Yet, through it all, I remained resolute. One night, as I lay on the examination table, her hand resting on her swollen belly, she turned to Guru with a rare moment of vulnerability. "Do you think I can be a good mother?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Guru paused, taken aback by the rawness of her question. In the time he'd known her, I had always been composed, her emotions carefully guarded. But now, as she faced the unknown, her fears were laid bare. "You've already shown incredible strength," Guru replied, choosing his words carefully. "Being a good mother isn't about being perfect, it's about doing your best, even when it's hard. And from what I've seen, you'll do whatever it takes to protect your child." Ai's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a moment, the idol mask slipped away, revealing the young woman beneath, a woman who was scared, uncertain, but determined to carve out a future for herself and her unborn child. Chapter 2: Shadows of the Past. The city lights flickered outside the window, casting long shadows across the room where Aquamarine Hoshino sat, deep in thought. His eyes, a mirror of his mother's eyes, were fixed on the past, a past that refused to let go. Despite the years that had passed since that fateful night, the memories were still vivid, haunting his every step. Aqua, as he was commonly known, had grown up under the watchful eyes of the public. As the son of the famous idol Ai Hoshino, his life had always been intertwined with the world of entertainment, a world that had both given him everything and taken everything away. The loss of his mother, so sudden and brutal, had left a void in his heart that nothing seemed to fill. But it wasn't just the loss that troubled him, it was the unanswered questions, the mysteries surrounding her death that kept him awake at night. He had dedicated himself to uncovering the truth, to finding out who was responsible for taking her away. It was a quest that had consumed him, driving him deeper into the world that had once been his mother's stage. But the more he delved, the more he realized how tangled the threads of fate were. How many lives had been touched by the same darkness that had taken his mother. Ruby Hoshino, his twin sister, shared his grief but not his obsession. She had chosen to follow in their mother's footsteps, aspiring to become an idol herself, to shine in the spotlight as I once did. For Ruby, the stage was a place of joy, a way to connect with their mother's memory in a positive light. But Aqua couldn't shake the feeling that the world of idols was just as dangerous as it was glamorous, a place where shadows lurked behind every smile. Their paths, though intertwined, were leading them in different directions. Ruby's dreams were filled with bright lights and applause, while Aqua's were haunted by shadows and secrets. Yet, despite their differences, they remained close, bound by the same blood and the same loss. As Aqua prepared for another day of shooting on set, a place that had become his battlefield, he couldn't help but think back to the days when his mother was still alive. She had been everything to him, a source of love and warmth in a world that often seemed cold and indifferent. But even Ai, with all her fame and success, had been vulnerable. Her life cut short in a way that still made no sense to him. The director called for a break, snapping Aqua out of his thoughts. He had been so lost in the past that he hadn't noticed the passage of time. The set around him, filled with bustling crew members and elaborate props, felt surreal, like a dream he couldn't wake from. Yet this was his reality now, a reality he had chosen in his quest for answers. As he stepped off set, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from Ruby, filled with excitement about her latest audition. She had always been the more optimistic of the two, her heart set on becoming the next big idol. Aqua smiled faintly at her enthusiasm, though part of him wished she would choose a different path, one that didn't lead into the same dangerous waters their mother had navigated. But he knew better than to try to dissuade her. Ruby was determined, just as their mother had been, and there was no changing her mind. All Aqua could do was watch over her, protect her as best he could from the shadows he knew all too well. Later that evening, as Aqua returned home, he found Ruby waiting for him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She had passed the audition, securing a spot in a new idol group. Her joy was contagious, and for a moment, Aqua allowed himself to share in her happiness. "You'll come to the debut, right?" Ruby asked, her voice hopeful. "Of course," Aqua replied, his tone softer than usual. He would be there, not just as her brother, but as her protector. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he would face them with her. But even as they shared this moment of sibling camaraderie, the weight of Aqua's mission pressed down on him. The truth about their mother's death was still out there, hidden in the darkness, and he wouldn't rest until he uncovered it. Every new connection he made in the industry, every new role he took on, was another step closer to finding the answers he sought. As Ruby practiced her routines late into the night, Aqua sat by the window, the city lights reflected in his eyes. He thought about the people he had met on set, their smiles, their secrets, and the roles they played both on and off camera. The world of entertainment was a labyrinth, filled with both light and shadow, and Aqua was determined to navigate it, no matter the cost. The next morning brought new challenges. Ruby's debut was fast approaching, and the pressure was mounting. Aqua watched her push herself harder and harder, determined to be perfect. He admired her dedication, but worried about the toll it was taking on her. Yet he knew better than to intervene. This was her dream, her way of connecting with the mother they have lost. As the day of the debut arrived, Aqua stood in the wings, watching Ruby prepare to step onto the stage. The lights dimmed, the music swelled, and for a moment, he could almost see their mother standing there, ready to perform. The resemblance was uncanny, not just in appearance, but in the way Ruby carried herself. The same grace and determination that had defined Ai. But as the music began and Ruby took her place in the spotlight, Aqua felt a chill run down his spine. The world of idols was a dangerous place, and he knew that better than anyone. As much as he wanted to support Ruby's dreams, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would test both of them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The performance was a success, and the crowd erupted in applause, but Aqua's mind was elsewhere. He could see the smiles on the faces of the audience, hear the cheers, but all he could think about was the shadows lurking behind the scenes, the secrets that still needed to be uncovered. As Ruby basked in the afterglow of her performance, Aqua made a silent vow. He would protect her, no matter what. He would find the truth about their mother, no matter the cost. And he would navigate the treacherous waters of the entertainment world, not as a star, but as a hunter, searching for the light in the darkness. Chapter 3: Behind the Curtain. The room was filled with a soft hum of conversation as Aqua observed from the corner, his eyes scanning the scene before him. The world he had entered was one of glamour and pretense, where every smile hid a secret, and every gesture was part of a carefully choreographed performance. Yet, to those who lived in this world, it was all too real. Aqua had always known that the entertainment industry was a place where the lines between reality and illusion blurred, but as he delved deeper into it, the truth became harder to ignore. Surrounded by fellow actors and crew members, he felt like an outsider, someone who could see the strings controlling the puppets, but couldn't reveal what he knew. He glanced across the room to where Ruby was engaged in conversation with a group of aspiring idols. Her enthusiasm was infectious, her smile bright and genuine. But even as she laughed and chatted, Aqua couldn't shake the unease that settled in his stomach. Ruby was diving headfirst into a world that he had come to distrust, and he was powerless to stop her. "You're awfully quiet today," came a voice from behind him. Aqua turned to see Narushima, a fellow actor who had risen to fame at a young age, standing with her arms crossed. Her eyes, sharp and perceptive, seemed to see right through him. "Just thinking," Aqua replied, his tone neutral. Kana raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "You're always thinking. Maybe you should try talking instead." Aqua managed a small smile, appreciating Kana's bluntness. She was one of the few people in this industry who didn't hide behind a facade, who spoke her mind even when it wasn't what people wanted to hear. It was a quality Aqua respected, though he was careful not to let her get too close. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. As if sensing his reluctance, Kana didn't press the issue. Instead, she leaned against the wall beside him, her gaze following his. "She's good, you know," Kana said, nodding towards Ruby. "She has what it takes to make it in this industry." "I know," Aqua replied quietly. That was what worried him. Kana studied him for a moment before sighing. "You're worried about her, aren't you? This world isn't kind, especially to someone as pure-hearted as Ruby." Aqua didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. Kana was right. Ruby's innocence, her belief in the goodness of others, made her vulnerable in a place where manipulation and deceit were the currency of the day. "She'll learn," Kana continued, her voice softer. "We all do, eventually. But it doesn't mean she has to lose herself in the process." Aqua nodded, though the knot in his stomach remained. He had seen too much, experienced too much, to believe that anyone could emerge from this world unscathed. Later that evening, after the day's filming had wrapped up, Aqua and Ruby returned home. The small apartment they shared was a sanctuary from the chaos of their public lives, a place where they could be themselves without the watchful eyes of the world. But even here, the weight of their shared past hung heavy in the air. Ruby flopped onto the couch, her energy drained from the day's work. "I'm so tired," she groaned, though there was a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "But it was a good day. I feel like I'm really making progress." Aqua smiled as he watched her, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You did great," he said, his tone genuine. Ruby beamed at the compliment, though she quickly noticed the tension in her brother's posture. "You're worried again," she observed, her expression softening. Aqua sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just want you to be careful, Ruby. This industry, it's not what it seems." Ruby sat up, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Aqua, I know you're trying to protect me, but I'm not a child anymore. I can handle this." "I'm not saying you can't," Aqua replied, his voice measured. "But there are things about this world that you don't know yet. Things that can hurt you if you're not prepared." Ruby stared at him for a long moment before her expression softened. "Aqua, I know you've been through a lot, and I appreciate that you're looking out for me. But I have to do this. I have to follow my dream." Aqua's heart ached at her words. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the darkness he had seen, but he also knew that he couldn't hold her back. Ruby had always been strong-willed, just like their mother, and she wouldn't let anyone stand in the way of her dreams. "I know," Aqua said finally, his voice resigned. "Just promise me you'll be careful." Ruby smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "I promise." The days that followed were a blur of rehearsals, filming, and meetings. Aqua found himself being pulled deeper into the industry, his every move scrutinized by those around him. It was exhausting, but he pushed through, driven by a need to stay close to Ruby and keep her safe. But as time went on, Aqua began to notice something strange. Conversations that seemed innocuous at first took on a different tone, as if there were hidden meanings beneath the surface. People who had been friendly and welcoming now seemed distant, their smiles no longer reaching their eyes. One evening, after a particularly grueling day on set, Aqua was approached by a man he had never seen before. The man was tall, with an air of authority about him that immediately put Aqua on edge. Aquamarine Hoshino, the man said, his voice smooth and calculated. "I've heard a lot about you." Aqua narrowed his eyes, unsure of the man's intentions. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone guarded. The man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I'm someone who knows things. Things about your mother, Hoshino." Aqua's heart skipped a beat at the mention of his mother's name. "What do you know?" he demanded, his voice low. The man's smile widened, clearly enjoying the power he held in this moment. "I know things that could change everything you thought you knew about her life and her death." Aqua's mind raced, a mix of fear and anger boiling within him. This was what he had been searching for, the answers that had eluded him for so long. But he knew better than to trust this man, especially not in an industry where deceit was the norm. "What do you want?" Aqua asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. The man chuckled, clearly impressed by Aqua's composure. "I want to help you, Aquamarine. You're looking for the truth, and I can give it to you. But in this world, nothing comes for free." Aqua clenched his fists, the weight of the man's words sinking in. He was being offered a chance to uncover the truth about his mother, but at what cost? As the man turned to leave, he paused, glancing back at Aqua with a knowing look. "Think about it," he said. "The truth can be a powerful thing, but it can also be dangerous." Aqua watched as the man walked away, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The truth was within his reach, but the path to it was fraught with peril. And as much as he wanted to uncover the secrets of his mother's past, he knew that doing so could put everything he cared about at risk. That night, as Aqua lay in bed, the man's words echoed in his mind. He had come so far, fought so hard to get to this point. But now, as he stood on the brink of discovering the truth, he found himself hesitating. What was he willing to sacrifice for the answers he sought? And more importantly, could he protect Ruby from the dangers that came with uncovering those secrets? As sleep finally claimed him, Aqua made a silent vow. Whatever happened, he would protect his sister, no matter what the cost. Chapter 4. Echoes of the past. City lights flickered outside the window as Aqua Hoshino stared into the night, his thoughts a whirlwind of memories and unresolved questions. It had been years since that fateful day, but the scars remained fresh, hidden beneath a calm exterior that few could penetrate. Aqua had always been the quieter of the twins, more introspective, more guarded. But the fire that burned within him was undeniable, a fire fueled by the loss of their mother, Hoshino, and the unresolved mysteries surrounding her death. Beside him, Ruby Hoshino was a stark contrast. Her energy and optimism were a force of nature, a shining beacon that drew people in. She had embraced the world their mother once ruled, diving headfirst into the entertainment industry with a determination that was both admirable and concerning. Aqua watched her closely, his protective instincts always on high alert, aware of the dangers that lurked behind the glitz and glamour of show business. The twins had come a long way since their childhood, where they had lived under the shadow of Ai's fame. Their mother's legacy was a heavy burden, one that they both carried in different ways. Ruby sought to honor it, to build upon it, while Aqua sought to uncover the truth behind it, a truth that had eluded them for so long. As the twins navigated their careers, their paths began to diverge. Ruby, with her bright smile and infectious charm, was quickly rising in the idol world, following in Ai's footsteps. She was the center of attention, the one who captured the hearts of fans and the interest of producers. But Aqua knew that the higher she climbed, the more perilous the fall would be. The industry was unforgiving, and the higher the pedestal, the greater the risk. Aqua, on the other hand, had taken a different route. He was more methodical, more strategic, always calculating his next move. While Ruby dazzled on stage, Aqua worked behind the scenes, learning the ropes of the industry from every angle. He had no interest in fame for fame's sake. His goal was singular and unwavering: to find out who was responsible for their mother's death. The opportunity to dig deeper came when a new project was announced, a film that would explore the darker side of the entertainment industry. Aqua knew that this was his chance to get closer to the truth, to uncover the secrets that had been buried for years. The director, Teishi Gotanda, was known for his hard-hitting, realistic portrayals of life behind the curtain, and Aqua sensed that this film could be the key to unlocking the answers he sought. As Aqua prepared for his role, he immersed himself in the script, analyzing every line, every character. The story, while fictional, was grounded in reality, drawing from true events and scandals that had rocked the industry. Aqua saw parallels between the film's plot and his own life, echoes of the past that resonated with his own experiences. The more he delved into the role, the more he realized that this film was not just a job, it was a mirror, reflecting the dark underbelly of the world his mother had inhabited. The story revolved around a young actress whose rise to fame was marred by manipulation, betrayal, and ultimately, tragedy. As Aqua studied the character, he couldn't help but think of the pressures she had faced, and the enemies she had unknowingly made along the way. But the film was more than just a reflection of the past, it was also a warning. The entertainment industry was a double-edged sword, offering both success and destruction, often in equal measure. Aqua's resolve hardened as he prepared for the role, knowing that this was his chance to expose the truth, to shine a light on the darkness that had claimed his mother's life. As the filming began, Aqua's focus never wavered. He threw himself into the role, his performance earning praise from the director and the crew. But behind the scenes, Aqua was always watching, always listening, picking up on the subtle cues and whispers that hinted at deeper truths. The industry was a web of connections, and Aqua was determined to unravel it, one thread at a time. Meanwhile, Ruby was continuing her ascent in the idol world. Her popularity was growing, and with it, the attention of powerful figures in the industry. Ichigo Saito, the president of Ichigo Production, had taken a particular interest in her career, seeing in Ruby the potential to be the next big star. Ruby's natural talent, combined with her relentless work ethic, made her a formidable presence on stage. But Aqua couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something far more dangerous than she realized. Their paths, though different, were still intertwined. Aqua and Ruby supported each other, confided in each other, but there was a growing distance between them, a distance created by the secrets they both kept. Aqua didn't tell Ruby about the investigations he was conducting, the questions he was asking. And Ruby, in turn, didn't tell Aqua about the pressures she was facing, the demands being placed on her as she climbed the ladder of fame. It all came to a head one evening after a particularly grueling day of filming. Aqua returned home to find Ruby sitting alone in the dark, her usual energy subdued. She didn't look up as he entered, her gaze fixed on something far away. "What's wrong?" Aqua asked, his voice gentle. Ruby shook her head, her expression unreadable. "Nothing, just tired." But Aqua knew his sister too well to be fooled. He sat down beside her, waiting for her to speak. After a long silence, Ruby finally turned to him, her eyes filled with a vulnerability that she rarely showed. "Aqua, do you ever wonder if this is all worth it?" she asked quietly. "The fame, the success, does it really matter?" Aqua was taken aback by the question. Ruby had always been so sure of herself, so driven. To hear her doubt her path was unsettling. "Why are you asking this now?" he asked, his concern growing. Ruby sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know. I'm starting to see things differently. The way people act, the way they treat you when they think you're important, it feels so fake. Like they only care about what I can give them, not who I am." Aqua felt a pang of sympathy for his sister. He knew exactly what she meant. The industry was full of people who would smile to your face while plotting behind your back, who would use you for their own gain without a second thought. "I get it," Aqua said softly. "But you're not alone in this, Ruby. You have me. And no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." Ruby managed a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Aqua. That means a lot." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their shared burdens pressing down on them. Aqua knew that they were both struggling in their own ways, each fighting battles that the other couldn't fully understand. But he also knew that they needed each other, now more than ever. As the night wore on, Aqua made a decision. He would continue his investigation, continue digging into the truth behind their mother's death. But he would also keep a closer eye on Ruby, protect her from the shadows that were closing in around her. The industry was a dangerous place, and he couldn't afford to let his guard down not for a second. The next day, Aqua returned to the set with renewed determination. He had a role to play, both on and off screen, and he would see it through to the end. The truth was out there, hidden beneath layers of lies and deception, and Aqua was prepared to do whatever it took to uncover it. But as he delved deeper into the world of the film, as the lines between fiction and reality began to blur, Aqua realized that he was not the only one searching for answers. Others were watching, waiting, ready to strike when the time was right. The game was far from over, and Aqua was ready to play. Chapter 5. Shattered illusions. Sound of applause echoed through the studio, a testament to another successful day of filming. Aqua Hoshino stood in the shadows, his expression unreadable as he watched the scene unfold. The bright lights, the eager faces, the carefully crafted smiles, it was all so meticulously arranged, yet so hollow. To the world, it was entertainment. To Aqua, it was a facade, a thin veneer covering the darkness that lay beneath. The industry had always been this way, a place where illusions were spun and reality was bent to fit the narrative. Aqua had learned that lesson early on, first as a child, watching his mother navigate the treacherous waters of fame, and later as he embarked on his own journey within the same world. But now, as he stood on the precipice of uncovering the truth about Hoshino's death, he realized just how deep the deception ran. Ruby, on the other hand, still clung to the dream, her belief in the magic of the stage unshaken. She had inherited their mother's talent, her charisma, and she wielded it with the same effortless grace. But Aqua saw the cracks in her resolve, the moments of doubt that flickered in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. He knew that the pressure was mounting, that the expectations placed upon her were suffocating. Yet, Ruby pushed forward, determined to make her mark, to shine as brightly as their mother once had. Their paths, though intertwined, were beginning to diverge. Aqua had become more withdrawn, more focused on his mission, while Ruby's star continued to rise. The industry adored her, showered her with praise, but Aqua couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. He had seen what fame could do to a person, how it could build them up only to tear them down when they least expected it. One evening, after a particularly grueling day on set, Aqua found himself alone in the dressing room. The silence was a stark contrast to the chaos of the day, a brief respite in the midst of the storm. He sat down, his thoughts drifting to the past, to the memories of his mother that still haunted him. Hoshino had been a star, a beacon of light in a dark world. But that light had been extinguished too soon, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. As Aqua stared at his reflection in the mirror, he felt a wave of anger and frustration wash over him. He had come so far, fought so hard, yet the answers he sought remained just out of reach. The people who had been involved in his mother's life, the ones who had profited from her talent, they all had something to hide. But uncovering the truth was like pulling at a thread in a tapestry. One wrong move, and everything could unravel. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door creaking open. Aqua turned to see Kana Arima standing in the doorway, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. She had been one of the few people who had managed to get close to him, to see past the walls he had built around himself. "You're brooding again," Kana said, her tone light but her eyes serious. Aqua managed a small smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Just thinking." Kana stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "You've been doing a lot of that lately. Is something bothering you?" Aqua hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Kana had proven herself to be a trustworthy ally, but the burden he carried was not one he could easily share. "It's nothing," he said finally, his voice quiet. "Just tired." Kana wasn't convinced, but she didn't push the issue. Instead, she sat down beside him, her presence a comforting one. They sat in silence for a while, the tension in the air slowly dissipating. "I know you're going through something," Kana said softly, "but you don't have to do it alone, Aqua. I'm here for you, whatever it is." Aqua looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. For a moment, he considered telling her everything, the truth about his mother, the investigation he had been conducting, the dangers that lurked around every corner. But he knew that doing so would only put her at risk, and that was something he couldn't allow. "Thanks, Kana," he said instead, his voice tinged with gratitude. "I appreciate it." Kana smiled, though the concern in her eyes didn't fade. "Just remember that you're not alone, okay? Whatever happens, we're in this together." Aqua nodded, though the weight on his shoulders remained. He appreciated Kana's support, but he knew that the path he was on was one he had to walk alone. The truth was a dangerous thing, and the closer he got to it, the more isolated he became. As the days passed, Aqua continued to dig deeper, following every lead, no matter how small. He interviewed people who had worked with his mother, sifted through old records, and pieced together the puzzle of her life. But with each new discovery, the picture became more complex, more twisted. The industry was a labyrinth of secrets, and every answer led to more questions. Meanwhile, Ruby was preparing for her biggest performance at a solo concert that would cement her status as one of the top idols in the country. The pressure was immense, but Ruby faced it with the same determination that had driven her from the beginning. She was determined to honor their mother's legacy, to prove that she was worthy of the Hoshino name. On the night of the concert, the atmosphere was electric. The venue was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation. Aqua stood backstage, watching as Ruby prepared to take the stage. She looked radiant, her eyes shining with excitement. But Aqua couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in his chest. As the lights dimmed and the music began, Ruby stepped into the spotlight, her voice carrying through the arena with a power that belied her petite frame. The crowd was enraptured, their cheers filling the space, but Aqua's focus was elsewhere. He scanned the audience, his instincts on high alert, searching for anything out of the ordinary. Then, he saw a figure in the crowd, their face obscured by the shadows. They were watching Ruby with an intensity that sent a chill down Aqua's spine. He couldn't see their face, but something about their presence felt wrong, threatening. Aqua's heart raced as he pushed through the backstage area, his mind racing with possibilities. He couldn't let anything happen to Ruby, not after everything they had been through. But as he made his way toward the figure, the crowd surged, and he lost sight of them. Panic gripped him as he searched the sea of faces. But the figure was gone, vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Aqua felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. He had been so close. But once again, the truth had slipped through his fingers. As the concert came to a close, Ruby returned backstage, her face flushed with triumph. She had done it. She had captivated the audience, just as their mother once had. But Aqua's mind was elsewhere, consumed by the threat that loomed over them. "Did you see that?" Ruby asked, her voice filled with excitement. The way the crowd reacted, it was incredible. Aqua forced a smile, though his heart wasn't in it. "You were amazing, Ruby. Just like always." Ruby beamed, but Aqua could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the toll that the performance had taken on her. She was pushing herself too hard, but Aqua knew better than to say anything. Ruby was determined to succeed, and nothing he said would change that. As they left the venue, Aqua couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The figure in the crowd, the secrets that still eluded him, they were all pieces of a puzzle that Aqua was determined to solve. But as he looked at Ruby, her face glowing with the afterglow of her success, Aqua realized that the stakes were higher than ever. The truth was out there, hidden beneath layers of deception, and Aqua was prepared to do whatever it took to uncover it. But he also knew that the closer he got, the more dangerous the journey would become. The world of entertainment was a place of illusions, where nothing was as it seemed. And Aqua was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. Chapter 6. The final act. Night was quiet, almost too quiet, as Aqua Hoshino walked through the dimly lit streets of Tokyo. His footsteps echoed softly against the pavement, the only sound breaking the stillness of the night. This was it, the final act, the moment he had been waiting forever, since that fateful day when his mother, Hoshino, was taken from him. The path he had chosen had led him here, to the brink of uncovering the truth that had eluded him for so long. But as he approached the building where it all began, a sense of unease settled over him. Aqua had spent years preparing for this, gathering information, piecing together the puzzle that was his mother's life and death. He had learned the ins and outs of the entertainment industry, navigated its treacherous waters, and uncovered secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. But now, standing on the threshold of the truth, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to cross a line from which there would be no return. Ruby was waiting for him when he arrived. She stood in the lobby, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her phone as she texted someone. When she looked up and saw Aqua, her expression softened, a mix of relief and determination in her eyes. "You're here," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. Aqua nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. I told you I would be. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. They had come so far, overcome so much, but this final step would test them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Are you sure about this? Ruby asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Once we go through with this, there's no turning back. Aqua's expression hardened, his resolve unwavering. I'm sure. We need to know the truth, Ruby. It's the only way we can move forward. Ruby nodded, though the uncertainty in her eyes didn't fade. She had always been the one to see the good in people, to believe in the magic of the stage and the purity of dreams. But even she couldn't ignore the darkness that had seeped into their lives, the shadows that had haunted them ever since Ai's death. Together, they made their way to the elevator, the soft hum of the machinery the only sound in the building. As the doors closed behind them, Aqua felt a sense of finality settle over him. This was it, the moment of truth. The elevator doors opened to reveal a long hallway, the walls lined with posters and memorabilia from Ai's career. It was like stepping into a time capsule, a shrine to the woman who had been a beacon of light in a dark world. But Aqua knew better than to be swayed by the nostalgia. He had seen the cracks in the facade, the lies that had been told to keep the truth hidden. At the end of the hallway stood a door, slightly ajar. Aqua and Ruby exchanged a glance before stepping forward, their footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. As they reached the door, Aqua hesitated, his hand hovering over the handle. Are you ready? Ruby asked, her voice filled with concern. Aqua took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. I have to be. With that, he pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit office. Behind a large desk sat a man, his face obscured by the shadows. But Aqua didn't need to see him to know who he was. This was the man who held the answers, the one who had been pulling the strings all along. Welcome, the man said, his voice smooth and calculated. I've been expecting you. Aqua stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the man before him. You know why we're here. The man leaned back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips. Yes, I do. You're here for the truth. But are you sure you're ready to hear it? Ruby stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. We deserve to know. After everything that's happened, we need to understand. The man chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down Aqua's spine. Very well, then. But I warn you, the truth is rarely as simple as we want it to be. Aqua clenched his fists, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. Just tell us. The man sighed, his expression shifting to one of faint sympathy. Ai Hoshino was a star, a brilliant light in an otherwise dark world. But like all stars, her light attracted attention, both good and bad. She was loved by many, envied by more, and hated by those who couldn't control her. He paused, letting the words hang in the air before continuing. But her death was not just the act of a crazed fan. It was the result of a long chain of events, decisions made by people who saw her as a tool, a means to an end. She was manipulated, betrayed, and ultimately discarded when she was no longer useful. Ruby's eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she absorbed the man's words. But why? Why did she have to die? The man leaned forward, his gaze intense. Because she was too powerful, too influential. She was changing the industry in ways that threatened those at the top, those who profited from the status quo. So they made sure she was silenced. Aqua's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing as he processed the revelation. This was it, the truth he had been searching for, the reason behind his mother's death. But it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the industry, the corrupt system that had taken her life and would continue to destroy others if left unchecked. What do we do now? Ruby asked, her voice shaking. Aqua turned to her, his expression steely. We expose them. We bring everything to light. The man laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. You think you can take them down? You think you can change the system? You're just two kids playing a dangerous game. Aqua stepped forward, his voice low and filled with determination. Maybe we are, but we're not afraid to lose. The man's smile faded, replaced by a look of contempt. You have no idea what you're up against. Aqua met his gaze, unwavering. We know exactly what we're up against, and we're not backing down. The room fell into silence, the weight of the confrontation pressing down on them. Aqua knew that the man was right. This was a dangerous game, one that could cost them everything. But he also knew that they had come too far to turn back now. As they left the office, the truth heavy on their shoulders, Aqua and Ruby knew that their journey was far from over. They had uncovered the darkness that lay at the heart of the industry, but now they had to decide what to do with that knowledge. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with risks and challenges, but Aqua was determined to see it through to the end. For his mother, for Ruby, and for himself. As they stepped out into the night, the city lights glittering like stars in the sky, Aqua felt a sense of resolve settle over him. The final act was just beginning, and he was ready to play his part. Wow, I can't believe Aqua and Ruby uncovered the dark truth behind their mother Ai's death, realizing it wasn't just a random act of violence, but a calculated move by powerful figures in the entertainment industry. Aqua's relentless pursuit of justice led them to face dangerous enemies, while Ruby's rise to stardom revealed the harsh realities behind the glamour. Together, they confronted the very forces that sought to silence AI, vowing to expose the corruption and fight for the truth, no matter the cost. Their journey was intense, filled with secrets, betrayal, and a resolve to change the world their mother once ruled. If you like my recaps, please consider liking and subscribing.